Hello and welcome back to Techweek TV. Thank you so much for joining us. This is brought to you today by Callaghan Innovation. It's fantastic to be here in Wellington, and today I'm incredibly humbled to be joined by James. He's the Future Insights Manager at Callaghan Innovation, so thank you so much for hosting us and for being here today.
Thank you.
Also joined by Colin, Program Manager at Callaghan Innovation, so thank you Colin for hosting us as well. And Veronica here, who is the founder and CEO of Humblebee. So we've got a great crowd here today. My name is Jake Miller. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Unfiltered, and it's a huge honour to be conducting this episode today. Today we're going to be talking about specifically exploring New Zealand's environmental innovation imperative and opportunities. So there's a huge opportunity in New Zealand in this space, and we're going to be delving into it today. So starting with James, I just want to start with the obvious. What is environmental innovation?
Yeah, look, so for us at Callaghan Innovation, we define environmental innovation as a product or a service that greatly reduces or even eliminates negative ecological impact, or it increases the productive and responsible use of a natural resource. And then finally, it can also be an efficiency play. So that's a product or a service that offers superior performance, but at a lower cost than its predecessor. So just to paint a picture of what that can look like, I think most of us have heard of EcoStore.
Yes.
So that's a great company that's on Kiwi supermarket shelves. Their products are in a packaging made from plastic, but that plastic is actually made from renewable sugarcane. So that's an example of a Kiwi company already differentiating itself by successful commercial environmental innovation.
Okay, and where do you see New Zealand leading the way in environmental innovation, and where are we the best?
Yeah, look, so we've already got some strong strengths. There's niche business-to-business plays. Like there's a great company out there called Armatech Environmental. They've been around for 40 years, and even just last year they were fitting carbon scrubbers onto factories in Egypt.
Yes.
It's a great example of helping to reduce industrial emissions. Yeah. I think the biggest surge at the moment is in environmental innovations around our kind of food and agricultural products. We've got great companies like Cairns-based seafood. So they've got awesome offerings like using biodiesel in their trawlers. They've got full traceability of all their products, and they're working towards being carbon neutral.
Okay, and yeah, not to mention Humblebee as well. It's be good to understand a little bit more, Veronica, from you about what your business does and how it fits into this world.
Yeah, of course. So Humblebee is a bioplastics company. We're early stage. We were inspired by a particular species of solitary bee. So it doesn't have a hive, lives by itself, doesn't make honey, makes plastic. And that plastic has got some really useful industrial purposes. It's resistant to water, and very, very strong acids and bases, and naked flame. And we are working with Callaghan Innovation and the Ferry Institute here in Wellington to reverse engineer that plastic made by the bee, because farming bees is not scalable, and figure out a way to make it on an industrial scale.
Wow, and how did you come across this problem? Why is this something you're working on?
My background was in reproductive biology, and we were learning about classes of chemicals that cause disruption for normal fertility and reproduction. And unfortunately, there's quite a number of plastics that do that.
Yes.
And I remember thinking when I was at university, this is insane. It's going to be a massive market shift and regulatory compliance issue in the future. And I just kind of bookmarked it mentally, and then saw the regulatory stuff start to come in as scientists began to lobby the World Health Organization and the UN against the issues and impacts associated with environmental pollutants from plastics.
Yeah. How many of these bees exist?
Look, there are, people think of honeybees and bumblebees, but there are thousands and thousands of species of bees, and a lot of them are solitary or like social solitary.
Yes.
And the ones that we're after are these ones who make this plastic. But there are a lot of different types of bees, and so I think honeybees are taking a pollination credit for a whole lot of other bees out there that no one knows exist.
A big world of bees.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What was that movie that they did? Bees or something? Bees 2 or something? I'm trying to remember. It was a Disney movie a few years back that I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, and it was a bit like there was a monarchy.
Yeah. And Colin, maybe you can help us here. But how is New Zealand placed internationally in terms of our ability to produce, commercially, viable, innovative sort of environmental solutions to problems?
I think we're really placed really well, and actually that's a lot of what James's work is showing.
Yes.
James, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, look, so we are starting from a strong base. We've got awesome innovators like Veronica on my right.
Yeah.
But there's also some big challenges. So just 2 years ago, the Global Clean Tech Index is an index that rates countries worldwide, seeing how successful they are at commercialising environmental innovation. And they found that we were 22nd worldwide. So very good at general innovation, but when it comes to the actual throughput of successful commercially innovative businesses, there's a big opportunity gap there. So that's something that Colin and I have been looking at.
And food and agricultural, my understanding, is where most of the kind of investment and patents have occurred. It'd be good to understand about some of the success stories in that space.
Yeah, look, so we've got examples like Sunfed Meats. That's an Auckland-based alternative protein play. And they had a successful round of funding just last year.
Is this like an Impossible Burger kind of?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I think even just about...
Right.
Well, Sunfed Meats is pea protein, extruded and texturized.
Right.
Impossible Burger was like this crazy ambitious project where they got essentially a GCMS machine, which is basically a chemical nose to smell a beef burger and then figure out the volatiles in it. I think there were 425 of them, and then recreate them chemically so that they could mimic, vegan-wise, a beef burger. So it's
such a hot space right now, right? It's just crazy, exploding around the world. I've been following it with interest. Sorry to interrupt you, train of thought.
No. I think as well, like we've been talking about the food and the agricultural side, another really exciting area is that waste to value market. So we've got great Kiwi companies already, like you had Lanzatech on yesterday. Awesome example of taking waste carbon, turning that into fuel. But there's a stable of other companies starting to emerge, like Avatana have got 4 products that they can now make from industrial waste streams, and also Mint Innovation, which I think is awesome, and they're able to mine gold from waste circuit boards using bacteria.
Yeah, and we had them as well on the panel yesterday. There's certainly a lot of fascinating stuff going on in clean tech and environmental tech. And one of the things that's interesting is, despite all of this innovation that you refer to, I believe between 2013 and 2017 we had a 6% decline in the value of environmentally innovative exports in New Zealand. Why is that?
So look, that's a tough question because we're talking about a whole range of products and services, but just to paint one example, we had a dip in our export of wastewater management technology, and within that water purification systems. We don't need to go into all of that today, but just as a good example of what we need to get better at in Germany, they're very strong at wastewater management systems. They look quite hard about what developing countries needed for wastewater management. It's completely different infrastructure, completely different regulation, and they seem to have done a better job at understanding that's a different market with different conditions. So one of the things we're quite keen to work on with businesses at Callaghan Innovation, you might have a great idea, but where does it sit within the market? If you're thinking about exporting, what are the regulations that are driving that business need for innovation as well?
And going a bit off script here, I'd love Veronica's perspective on this. I think there's probably a lot of mystery from your average entrepreneur maybe watching this, what does Callaghan Innovation do and how can it actually help me? So how have Callaghan Innovation helped your business? What does that look like?
They gave me some money.
That's always helpful.
And they've allowed me to hire a master's student to get some dedicated capital, but also start to build the R&D pipeline and capability for Humblebee as a company as it starts to grow.
Okay, and the educational part's a big bit. We're going to talk more about some of the programs and the new platform soon, but do you guys want to maybe talk to that, for entrepreneurs watching this who have these great ideas and want to help be the solution to all these problems we talk about, how should they approach you and what does that process look like?
I can take that. We already work with about 80, 90 amazing companies out there, and over now to the future, we want to grow that number of people, like you said. So there's always kind of an intrinsic motivation for a lot of people, and so we can support in different ways through grants, through funding, through business advice, or R&D capability build, and then to those initiatives you talked about. We're creating some of our own and supporting other initiatives in this environmental innovation space to grow this opportunity for New Zealand.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very, very cool. And just finally, James, I'm just keen to understand a little bit more about some of the other areas, because I know there's, from transport and logistics, energy, power, material and chemicals, resources and environment. There's so many different areas of which these environmentally innovative companies are performing. Where else do you see sort of growth areas in New Zealand? Where do you think we can carve out a niche globally?
Yeah. So look, it's a really, really exciting space, and in about 2 months' time, we'll be releasing a report, our view of like future opportunities around environmental innovation. That also leads into the C Prize. But just to give one other example, I think if you look at New Zealand's strengths in food traceability, like we already do an awesome job in that. Some of that, one way of understanding the demand for traceability is actually consumer and investor demands for transparency. Yeah. So that's a trend that's probably not going to go away, where there's more demand for understanding how products are being made, what their impact on the environment is, and that starts to influence buyer behaviour. So just even in March this year, the Danish government was debating starting to put climate labelling onto foods in supermarkets. It's probably too complex right now, but you can see where that sentiment is going and where technology is starting to push us towards. So sort of food traceability systems with that added layer of climate information on top, I think would be a very rich area for New Zealand.
Right. And Denmark aside, is New Zealand largely ahead or behind the curve when it comes to this?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. Like we've got some very strong plays like the Farm IQ software system that allows farmers to understand the inputs and outputs from their farms, and that's starting to bring in a greater understanding of what's required to improve efficiencies.
Yes.
I think we've got some very savvy businesses that are already leading the charge overseas, like our wine industry is awesome when it comes to organic certification, and they're actually picking up some new environmental innovations, like for example vine clips that are made from waste from grapes that are used in the brewing process. So we've got some very strong strengths. So I think probably the biggest gap is just realising how quickly the world is changing and how that could have a disruptive effect on our dominant export markets, but also that brings with it opportunities for commercial innovation as well.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so great that Callaghan helping New Zealand stay ahead, right, and all these opportunities. So, Veronica, you've told us a little bit about your business and sort of how you came across it. It's fascinating the work you're doing. What are the first kind of commercial or industrial applications of this technology that you're creating?
We're looking at the textiles market first and foremost for the plastics water repellency properties. So everyone's got an outdoor jacket or has things that they want to be water resistant, and we want to work with textiles companies and outdoor apparel companies to sell our product to them.
Okay. Yeah. So sales channels being the VF corporations of the world and the those kind of organisations.
VF.
Like major retail. Manufacturers of icebreakers and that sort of those kind of businesses.
We'd be a bit like the idea is now that we'd be a B2B. So we would sell to a chemicals distributor who's plugged into a whole lot of manufacturers all around the world and you go to those factories and they are offered a whole different suite of like dyeing and finishings products, and ours will be one of the that they take to them.
That's really exciting. And how far away are you from that technology being ready to start selling?
A little bit depending on how much funding we get over the next couple of years, but between 2 and 5 years.
Okay, that's really cool. And obviously it's solving a huge environmental problem, but is it the core of a multi-billion-dollar industry? What is it? Is it sort of there's a lot of talk around purpose and profit. Are you sort of driven by both in equal measure? How are you setting your model up to how are you setting your model up to fit with those two things?
The model is a profit business. At the moment, you can't coexist with the way that you're either a not-for-profit or you're a for-profit business in New Zealand. There isn't an opportunity to blend those yet, and hopefully that will change because I think business and having a social enterprise or a social good impact is starting to be seen as more of a norm and a standard thing. And at the moment we're a for-profit business with an environmental benefit, and that benefit comes from having a product that serves a market problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when you're making the world a better place, right? I mean, we need more businesses that do that, and if they make billions of dollars, then that's amazing as well. We want
that would be nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, look, I will say it's a very smart play by Humblebee. If you look at some of the global apparel brands, Burton, Patagonia, even looking at the success of Allbirds, that demand for more sustainable materials, especially when it comes to outdoor gear. So good luck with your efforts.
Yeah, it's a huge global growth trend, right? And we certainly see that in the US of all the interviews we're doing over there with different founders as well. And obviously it sounds like the technology is incredibly complex, and you've got obviously a very smart team working to build this out over time. What have been the biggest challenges with that so far?
We've holding the whole vision in my head and seeing all of the different technical capabilities. You've got chemists, genetics people, synthetic biologists, native bee specialists, micro dissectors, a whole lot of capabilities, and kind of pulling these threads together and stitching them into a research plan and capital raising them and against those, and then liaising with investors. And it's a juggling act, and keeping it all in your head it's difficult, but that's what makes it kind of fun and interesting as well.
Yeah, and maybe everybody can jump in on this question, but is the talent here to do this stuff?
In terms of where we go in the next round, like brewing a massive master batch to do kill tests in specific markets. Not really. By the time solvents and catalysts have got to New Zealand, they've kind of increased in price. And then if you manufactured them here, then you'd have to ship them to the other side of the world. So that's not that cost effective.
Right.
Also, if we're wanting to manufacture it biologically, so using a genetically modified organism that expresses the genes from the bees to produce our material in the same way that like insulin is made by E. coli, or I don't know if you're familiar with Ginkgo Bioworks, they're doing that with some other high value products, and that's where manufacturing is going in my view. And in New Zealand, because of reticence around genetically modified organisms, that would be problematic.
Right.
So no is the answer to that question.
Right. You mentioned that with GMOs. Like, what are your thoughts on the regulation around genetically modified organisms in New Zealand?
I think if you're going to alter the germline of a species that is very, very popular in the environment currently, and then you're just going to release it willy-nilly like a grass that we were going to put on every farm, there's some caution around that. But in terms of modifying like bacteria or yeast for the development of a natural product, and that product is molecularly identical to something that already exists in nature, that to me is not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if humans can outsmart nature and create stuff that's actually better for the world, then why shouldn't we do that, right? Yeah.
But look, like one of the things that we're finding in our environmental innovation report is the innovation is not just around technology. So it's around looking at the business model. Yeah. There was a recent report that said that the economic opportunity for Auckland alone for the circular economy would be $8.8 billion of savings by 2030.
Right.
So look, one of the things that Column is trying to do with the C Prize is trying to connect those different skill sets together through our upcoming competition.
And we're going to talk more about that soon, but just finally, Veronica, like, where do you see, we've talked a lot about these different areas of environmental innovation, like outside of your industry, where do you think are like the hottest areas for smart entrepreneurs to be thinking about building valuable companies?
How we're going to live long term in space.
Okay.
And also food and agriculture.
Because there's I mean, I don't know the numbers here, but there's something like there's not going to be enough food, and so not too many years from now, right?
I feel like that rhetoric is sometimes used to justify some seriously more intensive farming.
Right.
I think we need to really look at the food waste issue before we start going, hey, let's just put 1,000 cows on a square metre of land. But I think everyone's seen a real shift away from heavy animal agriculture, and I think that's only going to increase. And I think that's going to have an impact on lots and lots and lots of different things, like biodiversity loss and water quality, as well as methane and carbon dioxide output. So there's a lot of benefits that flow on from that, as well as access to cheap protein, which a lot, a growing population in developing countries need.
So look, I get really excited about food waste. So like that's why I was bouncing
really?
up and down. So we're actually we're taking quite a lot of calls over the last 6 months of innovators in New Zealand starting to ask questions around, like they've identified a waste stream and they're wondering how it can be repurposed into other uses. So that's everything from coffee grounds to even through to blood products. So, so rich opportunities available to New Zealand, and we've already got some frontier firms operating in that space.
That's really awesome. Yeah. And Veronica, just finding out with your business, I mean, you mentioned that maybe in the future the talent might not be here to get to where you need to be, but so far, obviously, you've made a commitment to staying in New Zealand and working with smart people from here and from around the world as well. What more could New Zealand be doing to help businesses like yours truly scale in this market?
So I think part of the reason the talent doesn't exist here for those particular reasons is a fundamental of our geography and where we are, and some of the constraints around legislation and what we can do. In terms of supporting New Zealand, in terms of Callaghan Innovation supporting New Zealand companies like me. Yeah.
Well, not necessarily just Callaghan, more what could New Zealand in general do to be make it more of an attractive place for this innovation to occur?
I think if we opened up government funding to pipeline to not just be academic and Crown research institutions, that would be really helpful.
Okay.
At the moment, that's the kind of way that deep tech gets developed in New Zealand, and that's not the only way that it gets. Where that seed germinates.
Yes.
It can happen in garages, and we tell the story about Freds and sheds and stuff, and then it's like, well, Fred then needs to leave his shed and go to a university and give half his IP away and sign up for a PhD program in order to get kind of government money, and that to me is a little bit frustrating. So I'd like to see it be broader.
That's good advice. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and Colin, let's get to you now. I'm sorry for having you sitting over there so quietly for all this time. Callaghan Innovation is about to launch a new environmentally innovative competition, I believe. C Prize, it's to encourage more of everything we're talking about, these commercially successful environmental innovation ideas. What is C Prize?
I think it's a great segue to talk about sheds and fields and labs and how we get ideas from those kind of places to where they can actually do good. So the C Prize is Callaghan Innovation's incentivized technology challenge competition. Okay. So the idea of the competitions have been around for hundreds of years. You take a significant problem or opportunity, you put it up in lights, put prizes and attention on it, and you have people from existing businesses, new business, startups, mavericks, have a go at solving those things. Okay. So for Callaghan, we have run this the C Prize 2 times, 2015, 2017, on drone tech, on wearable tech, and this time it's going to be on environmental innovation. And it's going to focus on 3 areas. What we grow and produce, what we use and consume, and rejuvenation of our natural systems.
That's really cool.
Based on last model, 2017, we had 10 finalist teams. They had $35,000 prize package each, which is money and workshops and R&D support and business advice to take their idea from those sheds and those fields and those labs and to try to come in with a proof of concept. And then an ultimate winner is picked. And that winner then, last time 2017, got a $100,000 prize package, which is cash, R&D time, participation in a delegation overseas. So
that's really exciting.
Prize.
Yeah, who can enter?
It can be a university team, it could be a new startup, it can be an existing business. Best way to illustrate it is a couple examples. 2015, 3 brothers up in Auckland, the Road Brothers, based in Balfour Road, came in and entered. They had an idea about drones, to take the drone out of drones, reduce those noisy things. Yeah. They didn't end up winning. However, they came overseas with us on a delegation to a tech mission to Nevada, 100,000 person event. Their idea got the best new product at that event. They came back, they got a grant, they then did a funding round, they then went to an accelerator in Techstars in Adelaide, they came back, did a second grant. They now got 12 people working up at Balfour Road.
Wow. That's so cool.
It is. In 2017, we had a team of 4 70-year-olds. We had a couple of existing companies. We had pure new startups like Eurigo, who won it. They're based out in Christchurch. How they came to enter it is pretty cool. They were the business kind of the founder and the technology lead. Used to sit around in Christchurch in the Epic Centre and have a beer on a Friday evening and think about all these things they could go, maybe, if they had the chance. The C Prize came along and it was an opportunity with a bit of support from Callaghan and our partners to go and have a go, and they went the whole way through the 6-month program and they came out and won the thing, and they're doing their own journey kind of like Dotterel did in the 2015 challenge.
Absolutely. And just very briefly, when do applications open?
Middle of August.
Middle of August.
Cprize.nz, all
Okay.
will be revealed.
Fantastic. And just finally, I know Callaghan Innovation is obviously doing a lot to support other environmental innovation initiatives. You know, some of those you partner with WWF to promote the new 9-Wire initiative. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that really fast before we finish off.
Absolutely. So Cprize isn't the only game in town. We need a lot of these initiatives. We need to build that pipeline. Zero Carbon Challenge, it's something that's based in Wellington. That's an 8-week program where people can come in and at the end of it start a funding campaign for their idea with Pledge Me. 9Wire is launching this Sunday. It's a partnership with us, government stakeholders like MFE, Ministry for Environment, Ministry of Prime Ministries, DOC, the Arkina Foundation, again supporting enterprises building the natural environment. We might have entries out of those that enter the Cprize. You go through that. 2020, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, they have the focus of our Expo 2020 in Dubai is sustainability.
So
2021, APEC is coming to New Zealand. Wouldn't it be a great vision in 2021 is after we've supported more and more of these amazing companies who are good for the bottom line and good for the world, that we to take them to the world, and then the world can come back to here and see New Zealand leading in this space.
It's so exciting. Well, guys, thank you so much for making the time today. Colin, James, and Veronica, like so many great insights, and I know the viewers will get so much from this, so very grateful for you guys taking the time out. And Callaghan, thank you so much for hosting us as well here today. So, guys, just before we finish off, I just want to let you know that in April this year, Callaghan Innovation was delighted to launch their new discovery platform. It's a free discovery platform, Scale Up NZ. That is scaleup.nz. It's a place we can go. There's high quality resources on everything we're talking about today. It can also connect to the ideas that you have with investors to help you, raise funding, take your idea to the next level. I'd highly recommend checking it out. That's Scale Up NZ. Thank you so much for watching, for tuning in. We've got hundreds of viewers and thousands throughout the day, all around the country tuning in, and we're really grateful for you being here. And we look forward to sticking with you throughout the day as we move on to some more sessions. So see you soon. Thank you.
If I had a mission statement for New Zealand, it would be a place where talent can thrive.